Karen, this is Boyd Strain.
Yes.
That
Hi,
was
Boyd.
so great. That was so great. Uh, one of the great things you have is stated in interaction with people from China. How do you support those Chinese students when they come over here?
So it was very interesting because the people from Global Education Institute came to us after looking at our website and wanted us to share these skills of building fire or catching a fish or learning a plant that they could eat, and things that the people that were setting the program up hadn't really done, even though they've been here in the United States for a while. So we wrote up a proposal of how our program would look, and they also wanted to have stuff running all the time, all the waking hours, which, you know, is our summers are very hot, and I don't know what it's like in China, but if you're not used to being outside, and being outside this time of year all day long is very challenging, especially after they've been traveling a long time. So last year when we did the programs, we had downtime. We did the program out at the River State Park, and we start our programs with an opening circle where we give thanks to whatever you're feeling that day. We call it giving gratitude. It's a great way to shift focus. So we started with a song on a Native American flute that was a Cherokee morning song, and then we said we're thankful for the sun coming up, or the beautiful sunrise, or the green trees, or the smell of the air. And we went around the circle and encouraged them to do the same thing, which they were pretty good about doing. And then we started with a game to try to get everyone moving around and just kind of used to the terrain, and get them all nice and warmed up before we started our trek through the woods. And we walked them out to one of the group campsites, and we shared anything that we found, plants. They were enthralled with mushrooms. Like I said, the squirrels, we saw plenty of squirrels. We were able to find a couple of snakes, and they were pretty fascinated with that, and butterflies and things like that, so some different insects. We taught them how to make cordage. We made bowls with them by burning out pieces of wood on the fire and then scooping it out with spoons. We taught, like I was talking about, the nature awareness skills. We did something called a drum stalk, which you are blindfolded and you have to move through the woods to where you think the sound of the drum that's being played somewhere is. So you're walking over crazy terrain and really getting to trust yourself and feeling the ground with your feet. And it was very interesting to see them do really well. I mean, they really got into it. They were very cooperative and no kickbacks or anything, so they were very helpful for each other. And at the end of the day, we do a Thanksgiving and a closing circle, and we ask people to share what their impressions are or what they learned. And those kids all said, and they did this year too, that the experience that they had in getting in touch with nature was something that they'll remember the rest of their lives. They loved just seeing the animals and learning how to cook on the open fire, and learning and playing the games which tested those skills. We taught them some compass reading, map reading. I had some skulls and skins of our native animals, since I didn't know what we'd see on the walks, and so they were able to see those things up close and personal. So the language barrier was not too bad of a problem. They did have translators, but it was really, really great to see them embrace it all. And like I said, want to conserve animals that they are not used to seeing in their country.
Thank you. I was kind of interested in the logistics of how do we support people from visiting countries. I'm in the sister cities, and through the last 2 or 3 years, we've had groups of Chinese students come over here. And usually we arrange housing and we arrange logistics support locally. How do you handle that?
So that's where the Global Education Institute, they did most of that for the trip's whole visit. So the only thing that we had to do logistics for were setting up the campsite. So going to the and saying, okay, I've got this group coming and we're going to be there for so many hours, and then giving the information to their bus driver. But they coordinated the rest of that part of it. The backpack trip that we did, we went back and forth with Global Education Institute, who in turn went in touch with the school administrators to convey what gear they needed to buy and then what the activities were. So it was always through a third party, and it was pretty challenging because they didn't, like I said, they didn't know a lot of what we were doing. So when we would say, hey, you need to get this type of backpack, or you need to have this kind of dress, and please dress so you can get wet because it's hot, and you need to be, appropriately dressed for health reasons, it was really hard to get that point across. And again, it's like we were going through a third party, so we haven't had to do quite the logistics that it sounds like you have to do. I'm muted.
Good evening. This is BC. I was going to ask of the things that it's fascinating. Really, you almost imagine the fire in the forest and the storytelling. So that was very, very enthralling. Let me ask, how is your organization funded? Is it adequate? And what is the size of your annual budget?
So we have a lot of our funding is through grants. Our biggest money maker for as far as our fundraising is our auction that we hold each November. We also have a Global Giving Foundation site set up that a lot of people donate through. We charge fees for our summer camps, which is what carries most of our administrative staff through most of the year. That's definitely our biggest money maker that we have as far as classes go. And then we do have people that will join us as members. We're trying to get sustaining members going as well. So a combination of everything similar to what most nonprofits do. I don't have the direct budget for the animal care. That's through the conservation team, so mine's all on the education side, and the director keeps that clear for me because it's too much because we keep going through so many different entities. So I can't totally answer the budget question right offhand.
That's fine. The issue is, in what way, for instance, do you relate to organizations like the Audubon Society or other wildlife preservation operations, both here and internationally?
So we do things like with our conservation team, with the box turtle study per se, that's going through collaborations with NC State University and Davidson University and some people in Greensboro. So we have collaborations on that front. When we have the scientists out for the BioBlitz, those are mainly local to North Carolina. A lot of them come through the museum in Raleigh, again through all the universities in our area and some others. And as far as support, anything else is kind of indirect. Like I don't know what all grants that she's gotten from things like Audubon or those bigger sites. I know like our local chapters will help do a little bit of sponsoring of our auction or the BioBlitz, or they may give us some funding for classrooms if we need supplies and things like that. Does that answer your question a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Karen. This is Deanne. I'm curious, how did you guys come up with all these different types of programs like the, my favorite one is the swamp crawl?
So yeah, a lot of our programs are based on a fundamental called the Art of Mentoring, which is designed by John Young, and he saw a need for getting back in touch with nature, but also in a more community-driven way. So he visited with several native cultures all across the world and talked to them about how to connect with nature and how to get kids and people involved so that they continue to stay involved. So part of our camps come from that culture. And then part of them, like Swamp Crawler, is because we back up to New Hope Creek here in Durham. We have Wildlife Resource Commission land that's roughly 100 acres that we have access to that backs up into New Hope Creek. So we have all sorts of floodplains back there, and it's very swampy. The kids love going in there and finding all sorts of things. They saw a bald eagle out there this year. They see blue herons. They find turtles. We have a webcam set up out there and have caught bobcats on those camera. We see coyote. They find those kind of tracks, just really amazing things that they find out there. Some really neat fish, crayfish, you name it, they have those things going on out there, and they love crawling around the waterfowl impoundment, and then also some of the creeks and watersheds that are on the Lee Farm property that kind of all flow into New Hope Creek. Our camps like the Wolverine. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please do, continue.
So yeah, our camps like Wolverine and Foxwalker and Wild Harvest, all those are based on what we're trying to do for the theme. So Wolverine is a lot about being very stealth and moving and stalking. They do a lot of stalking games. They do a lot of camouflaging. Foxwalker is a lot about tracking, so they will learn how to read different tracks, how to try to follow tracks. They make track casts. They look for other things besides just footprints and learn about animal browse and looking for hares out in the wild, which is pretty amazing, but kids find them, which is great. And then also trying to figure out what the story was, you know, why that animal was going a certain direction or what they think it found. We will come across kill sites, which are sites where an animal has killed another animal and eaten it and left remains, and try to figure out what that mystery was.
So Karen, I'm trying to figure out where you all are located, because I'm right near Irwin Road and New Hope Creek. And the box turtles, I actually found one in my backyard a couple of weeks ago, and I was glad to be able to have your website as a resource. There's a big mulch bed and pine trees in between mine and my neighbor's house, and I just put them in there, out of the reach of my two dogs. And within an hour, he was gone.
Yeah, yeah. They move a lot. You know, we always say turtles are slow, but if they have a mind to, they can move out pretty quickly, and they're very good at camouflaging. We are located, if you come on I-40 and you get off at the 54, on Highway 54, and you get to Durham, you go to the first light, that's not the exit ramp onto or on ramp onto 40, and at that light you make a left, and there's Palladium Park is park in front of us. But if you follow that road, which is Lee Farm Road, to the back of the property, we are in Lee Farm Park, which is just at the back of that property. It's about 90 acres that's here. This park was a farm back in the 1800s, early 1800s, and they had, at the biggest, they had 1,000 acres, and the family kept around for a long time, and the person who helped establish this park is a descendant of the second wife of Mr. Lee, and he actually lives on property they still have on the other side of 40. But that's how that's where we are. So it's a great area, and it goes along, it parallels I-40 for a while till you go to the next road. So that's where we are.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? I want to make sure we get the last question in. Boyd may have another one if no one else does, and I'll give one more opportunity, and then I'm going to ask Boyd if he has the last question, and then if he could lead us in the four-way test.
Karen, I was just curious, what is, in your experience, the most endangered species around here, and what can we do as residents to work on that preservation?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as right in our local area, I would have to say that our salamanders and frogs are probably the ones most threatened right now because of habitat loss and because of runoff from all the development. That threatens a lot of our creeks around here as well. Anytime you go by and you see a creek after one of these rains where it looks like chocolate milk, that is sediment, and even though that's just dirt, that's still considered water pollution. And when you have that much in the water, you are starving those animals of oxygen, and it kills the macroinvertebrates, which are what we test to see what the health of those rivers are, which starts going down the food chain. We've got frogs and salamanders who this state is phenomenal because we have 42 or 44 species of salamanders, second to Oregon, which is about the same amount. And so those amphibians breathe through their skin, and when we're disrupting the water quality, they're not going to survive. When we're disrupting the water quality where they don't have food, they can't eat. So I would say that those things are the most threatened. They've found a lot of, they've been having diseases pop up on the frogs that are hurting the population with them. So as far as just specific to our very local area, I would say that there's more that are threatened as opposed to one that's endangered that I'm going to come up with on the top of my head. We've got a salamander that's on the coast, the tiger salamander that's on the species. We have several plants on the species all across the state. We have hellbenders up in the mountains, which is another salamander species that's on the endangered list. Again, habitat loss and threat from pollution as well in the waterways.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for all the information and the knowledge that you've shared tonight. I'm sure that we'll have lots of additional questions that we could have answered if we only participated in some of your education programs. So I'm going to encourage us all to do that, to get out of wherever we are and to find out, even those of us who are involved in nature and who live in nature, I think it'd be really fascinating to experience what you teach in that location, in those places, and to have that interaction with nature as you're explaining and teaching, and all the people that work with you. It's apparent that you're doing a really great and important job. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you again for having me and for all your support. And yeah, I hope I see you in one of our classes or any of our venues where you feel you can get connected with nature and learn more about us and everything around us.
And I'm going to ask Boyd, Dr. Boyd Strain, if he would lead us in the four-way test. And if you have any other thoughts before you do that, Boyd, go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I like this opportunity to do this. It expresses the way the Rotary Club, how we're driven. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, we ask, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I think Karen's effort is directed to all of these.